I saw my life flash before my eyes. This is a phrase that people who have had near-death experiences often say after the incident. To some degree, this is true for priest and psychotherapist David M. Moss. After devoting his life to psychotherapy and religious concepts, as well as encountering 2 near-death experiences, he began processing and evaluating what happens emotionally, spiritually, and physically thereafter. Moss had treated patients post-near-death accidents and valued the insight he found from his own experiences because he knew that he could share it with other priests and psychotherapists to help patients. So he launched an academic case study on the matter. Moss makes 2 main claims about near-fatal experiences and what problems arise from them. Moss states that if a near-fatal experience occurs from the outside in, for example, an automobile accident or a natural disaster, guilt surfaces as the main emotion of conflict. In contrast, Moss claims that if a near-fatal accident occurs from the inside out, such as a heart attack or a terminal disease, the main emotion of conflict that arises is shame. Moss claims that in the first instance, the body is assaulted, and in the second, it revolts. Understanding these 2 different concepts of a near-death incident can help various therapists provide the best care and recovery for victims. Moss claims that although denial can be varied and complex, ultimately, death is simple. There is an instant, a certain moment in time, that we die and cease to experience life as we know it. Moss describes the feelings of such an incident from 2 different perspectives of first-hand encounters, and then discusses some of the problems that arise and reflects and processes near-death experiences. The first instance he describes is one of what he calls collateral damage. Moss was on his way to work in his downtown office in Chicago when all of a sudden he heard police sirens. 3 cars passed him with their sirens going off. He then pulled to an intersection, waited for no traffic to be coming, and signaled to turn left. As he was turning, out of nowhere came 2 police cars. The first one barely missed him, and the second one hit him in the side at a speed of approximately 60 miles per hour. This accident totaled his car, shattered his left arm, hurt his right hand, broke many of his ribs, cut his face from the top of his nose to his upper lip, and caused him to be rushed to the hospital. The first problem that Moss addresses with near-death instances is the potential for anniversary reactions. As a psychotherapist, Moss describes people dealing with anniversary reactions and what took place in phases. The first phase is resistance, which includes recognizing danger and the fear and struggle they had to gain control over their accident. Then the victim goes back and forth between trying to be a master over their accident to denying it. Then, when victims realize there is potential to survive their situation, their will to live kicks in. Then this energy shifts to what is commonly known as an out-of-body experience, where tranquility replaces fear. Then the victim's present situation is associated with pain and fear, and the future seems almost absent to the victim. This is what causes the impression of all the person's memories to flash before their eyes. Some victims even feel a sense of belonging with the entire universe. Moss claims that using this model of phases to help victims process what happened in their experience, that victims can better understand their guilt and fear. The experience Moss describes in his car accident is one that occurs from the outside in. Moss claims that he struggled after his incident, but was able to handle it much better in comparison to the second near-fatal incident that he had. David Moss was meeting with a patient at his office when he began to feel awkward. He began to feel a pain in his chest, and his arms began to shake uncontrollably. He then dismissed himself to his restroom. Moss then experienced symptoms of what he would later find out was a heart attack. Moss would refer to this incident as one that recurs from the inside out, which results in the victim feeling shameful. Moss claims that the solution to his near-death experience and the challenge he faced afterwards was divine providence. He refers to providence in many different ways, the first one being the guidance and belief that tragedies approach via insight can produce beneficial consequences. Moss states that during his heart attack, he was completely unconscious and does not remember when he began to feel alive again. Moss refers to the time after his heart attack as a faith crisis. As a priest, Moss was a very religious person, but during the time after his attack, he felt an absence of God in his life. After another problem Moss addresses for fellow psychotherapists and priests is counseling patients going through a faith crisis. Moss claims that the application of psychology develops strength and balance in life, and that religious thinkers welcome assistance and focus beyond their self. Moss calls his fellow priests and psychotherapists to use the soul's restoration as a focal point for therapy, especially with victims experiencing an absence of God after their accident. Moss claims that patients can renew their psyche if they focus on their soul and focus on providence and what role it played in them surviving their near-death experience. Being a priest, a lot of what Moss had to say about helping patients to cope with problems that arise from near-death experiences was religious. Moss said that he found that God was within him, directing his soul toward survival during his experience. Moss covers two main topics in his academic case study and various approaches and first-hand experiences regarding each situation. Whether or not a near-death experience occurs from the outside in or from the inside out does not seem to have a significant difference when it comes to proposed treatment options. Moss claims that going through the phases of a victim's near-death experience, as well as focusing on their soul and providence, can help patients deal with stress disorders and anxiety and faith crises that arise after their experiences. Thank you.